Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
That's beautiful. I feel at home here. That's part of my family. And first, I'd like to thank you, God, Jesus, and all of you that invite me to be here to participate. And by the way, so I'm not here, we're just sharing what I studied that I know that's for me. Okay, just I'm going to share with you what I studied. And that theme that we're going to study today, that's love your enemy, was inspired based on the experience that we have had in our mediumship group. We saw a number of spirits that comes in and brings this hate, these feelings, and also the idea that if once they persecute or when they do something bad for those that did some harm for him, for she, for him, for her, you'll feel happy. And we see that it's the opposite way. As much we get into this loop, worse it gets. So that's what that inspired me. And then when I start to study, I say, no, and I think it's for myself. Because you see us sometimes trapped on those feelings. It's very natural. If someone does bad to us, naturally, I don't know how, we're just trying to revenge something bad. And that's why it requires thoughts, require stud, be alert. So for us not doing that way, so to change. So as a matter of fact, everything that I'm going to say here today, it doesn't mean that I'm doing. It's just my goal, became my goal, but I'm not doing. So we're going to share some experience here. Good? Ready?
Yes.
Here it will be the thought process that we're going to use to present this study. Let's see if, yeah, I think now it's coming. Okay. So the thought process, imagine like a mountain, the path that we're going to go through it to study, to present this study. So first we're going to read about Jesus' teaching about love your enemy. And then we're going to zoom in.
You have to point that. Point to the
Oh, to here?
Yes.
Okay. And then we're going to zoom in about the word love. So we need to have a little bit better understand what that means, what Jesus tried to bring it to us. And what we're going to be talking about, reflection about this Jesus teaching, and when we're going to also look at some principles, spiritist principles, that's going to create a ripple effect. What does it do if I do this? For good, but also for bad. And the next step will be the second teaching, that if someone strikes your right cheek, offer him the other also. So it's another teaching that coincides, the same idea about, to love your enemies. And then we're going to go through some examples that kind of bring this whole teaching together, how to live with that. Okay? And if someone wants to just make a quick comment on the subject where we're going through, that's okay, but very quick, just to, if something comes burning, it's okay. So let's start it. Oh, sorry, that's a nice one. And what's the goal today? The goal is to overcome these negative feelings, because it's a fact. It will happen with us. Because here we live on earth, it's a matter of time. Someone we're going to get close to us and maybe it's going to harm us, or we will harm someone for lack of knowledge, for our own behavior that we still have. So it's a matter of time, will happen. And have that in mind, will going to help us to do the right things. Okay, so I love to work as a team, okay? I'm going to ask you some help, read, we're going to change quickly some thoughts. So I'd like the first volunteer to help me to read that statement that Jesus brought. No, how many? No, no. Here we go.
Jesus' teachings. You have learned that it was said, you shall love your neighbor and hate your enemies. But I say to you, love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who persecute and malign you, so that you may be children of your Father who is in heaven, who makes the sun rise on the good and on the evil, and the rain fall on the just and the unjust. For if you love only those who love you, what reward will you receive from men?
Okay. Let's think together about this teaching. What we're going to say here right now, that's the most important things. If from this part forward, if we don't remember, it's okay. Because we're just going to be explaining why we need to do two things in this process to love your enemy. Just two things. Do good and pray for them. So, if you want to make my day today, when we leave, there's two things that we're going to remember. Do good for those that hate us or our enemies, and pray for them. Now we're just going to say why we should be doing that. Another interesting point that we know that our mission or our goal, the main goal is charity. Because we know without charity, there is no salvation. And there is a point that they brought it. If you love only those who love you, what reward will you receive from it? So love to those that love us, that's no work there. No, that's good. But love those that love our enemies, those are the challenges. And there is one statement on the gospel that's also very interesting that I would like to read. It's that's kind of similar, the statement that we have there. If love toward one's neighbor is the principle of charity, love one's enemies. It is the most sublime application of such a virtue, is one of the greatest victories obtained over selfishness and pride. So that's a huge goal. So we can overcome our selfishness and our pride. Okay, so now let's zoom in the word love to understand that love. Because the first time that I read love your enemy, I said, it's impossible. How am I going to have the same feeling that I have for my daughter, for my wife, to someone that wants to kill me or wants to harm me? It's different. So I couldn't understand, when you just read, love your enemies. And then doing some more study on the gospel, okay, so is it different? So Jesus did not mean by this word that one must have one's enemy. Jesus did not mean by these words that one must have for one's enemy the tenderness that one would have for a brother, for a sister, or a friend. Love presupposes trust, and we could not trust someone who means us harm. So, okay, now there's a difference, the feeling. But because at that time we didn't have one word that could describe exactly this type of feeling, to differentiate. So the word love would apply for both type of feelings. So now we know, okay, that's possible. I don't need to have the same feeling. It's almost impossible to have the same feelings. But so what that means about love your enemy? It's another point I want to make here about this trust. How trust is important. Because if I trust in someone, if I trust her, I'll have this tenderness and I'll have this good feeling to be with her. But if you don't have a trust, it'll be very difficult. How am I going to get this good feeling for someone if I don't trust? So building trust, it's a step to love or to have this feeling to somebody else. and how to build love, how to build a distrust. That's not part of this training here or this meeting here, but it's something for us to thinking about it. How I can build trust with my wife, with my husband, with my family. Because as it builds up the trust, these connections start to come freely. So, but it's something for us to study a little bit later on. So what that means, so when Jesus said you needed to love your enemy, that's pretty simple. That's so simple now. That means, someone could read the first one. Oops.
Understanding loving your enemy means holding neither hatred, rancor, or desire for vengeance against them. It means forgiving them unconditional and without altered motive for the evil they have caused you.
If someone wants to read the next.
It means not setting up any obstacles to reconciliation. It means wanting the good for them instead of wishing them evil.
It means rejoicing instead of despairing for the good that reaches them. It means extending to them a helping hand in case of necessity.
It means abstaining either in word or act from anything that might harm you. Finally, it means repaying their evil with good, in everything with no intention of humiliating them.
Is it easy to do? No. Can we do it over?
But when we are discussing enemies, not enemy in the the traditional meaning, enemy as the person who is difficult to live with.
Very good. Yes. 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 There is a huge spectrum from, these enemies. But the idea will remain the same. But definitely there is this whole spectrum. Someone that just step on your foot, to someone that kill your children, right? But very good point. So but the idea remains the same. So can we do that overnight? No. We wish. But we'll get there. We'll get there. It's very difficult. We don't need to have the same feeling that we have for our daughters. But we need to be able, inside of your heart, to not doing that, consciously not doing those things, or doing those things when it's in a positive way. And requires time, requires effort, requires so many other things for us to achieve that. So that's when I meant before, that these became my goals. And that's what Jesus was telling us. That should be our goals. So we can stop this cycle that the person A does something bad to the person B, and the person B trying to do even more to the A and get into this cycle. They only create harms. And sometimes we see ourselves doing that. It's so kind of in our mind automatically trying to do those things, then doing the good and pray for them. Normally we go to the opposite way. But we should kind of have that in mind, that if someone harmed me, I just cannot try to pay back.
And even the sentence of Martin Luther King is very powerful too.
Very.
Love is the only force capable of transforming an enemy into a friend. That's
exactly. Exactly. Because you break the cycle. And do you think I think it's the next one. It's when a couple of days ago I was reading, you making just build on your comments. My daughter, she loves Martin Luther King. And I was reading, for her, this little book. And I found out that Martin Luther King, when he was young, someone told him, I think it was a priest, about Jesus' teaching. Love your enemy. And that got so inside of his mind that every time he was doing some protest in favor of the blacks, for equality, he never was involved or not want to be involved in a fight. No. He would go on the street, he would talk, but no fighting. If someone started fighting, he would step out. He was against violence. He maybe not agree with what you think, but he never would, create a violence against that person. And he learned that when he was little from the priest. And then I just found out a couple of days ago, reading to her, that I found out. So now we're going to build some hypotheses here, and we will see the ripple effect, taking considerations some fundamental spiritism, the existing of God, communicability of the spirits. We're going to, on a plurality of inhabited worlds, the existing and survival of the spirit after death, and reincarnation. That's going to go now link it to what we have seen on our mediumships meetings. Hypothesis. Someone person A harms person B. Assume that they don't know about those principles. Say, okay, if someone harms me, I'll go kill that person, and that's it. Do you think they're going to stop there? Will not. Because the person is just going to eliminate the body. The spirits will continue, trying to, the revenge and go against. And that's why, that's the existing, that to have that in mind, that's not going to stop. And about reincarnation. And guess what? Who can reincarnate together with you in your family? Who can be your boss? Because the whole idea is to harmonize. So we'll have another opportunity to meet the person. It's just a matter of time. So might as well we deal with the situation right now. Don't wait for next incarnation. Pray and do good. Of course, it's challenging. So that's why pray for yourself to encourage, to have the courage. Because it requires more courage to do that than the payback. Requires more courage to hold our pride, to take care of our selfishness. Requires more courage doing those things than going trying to do bad to the other person. Another point is about the existing of God and the attributes of God. We know that God it's justice, love. So if that person is around us, if that person or that situation happened with us, there is a meaning. There is a purpose there for our own growth or help someone to grow as well. So there is a meaning around that. So we don't get into the feeling, oh, I'm a victim of the situation. We are not. Another teaching. Who would like to read that piece?
You have learned that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. I am telling you not to resist the evil that others might want to do to you. But if someone struck you right cheek, over him the other also. And if someone wants to sue you, take your tunic, leave him your cloak also. If someone wants to force you to go 1,000 steps with him, go 2,000. Give to him who asks, and do not turn away someone who wants to borrow from you. The Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 38 to 42.
Thank you. So there we see Moses' time, so he brought, you know, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. At that time, was already, you know, a big step change, because at that time, if you kill, you know, one person, I'm going to go there and kill the entire city. So that was kind of the proportion. So Moses come and say, okay, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. What a step change. Now Jesus comes and say, now, if someone strikes your right cheek, offer him the other also. So that means if someone do, you know, bad thing to us, we need to show the other side, which is the good. Do good for them. Another, when you on a gospel, bring this point of honor. And it's very, it seems to be that the society also has something in mind, or had this concept that the strong guy, that we needed to pay back. And then I love mom and daddy, and as you remember once daddy said, well, you shouldn't come home crying. If someone does something to you, you need to go and do the same thing to them. Don't come back to, you know, to home crying about it. And you see, that gets almost like everyone listen from those things. And how that concept, it does not align with Jesus' teaching. So on a youth group or in our children and on the Spirit Center, you need to also educate in a different way, that you don't need it to pay back. You don't need to do those things. I remember a quick story here. I was on maybe in the 6th grade, and I was, you know, with some friends at school, and I don't quite remember exactly how things started, but I think someone was doing something wrong with somebody else, a friend of mine, and they tried, no, don't do it with him. No, it's not right. If I'm not going to do it with him, I'm going to do it with you. In the end of the school, I'm going to meet you outside. So, oh my gosh, I'm going to fight now. And it was interesting that that day, I couldn't even study anymore. Now my mind was saying, oh my gosh, what's going to happen at the end of the day? And when I went outside and we had, you know, this, you know, people around and waiting for the fight. But that for me was like, that's not right. You know, I don't know how to fight. I don't know how to. And then at that date, I kind of, I was with my sister, and then, you know, I don't want to fight. No, I don't want to. I walk with my sister. But inside of my heart, it's like, oh my gosh, am I supposed to fight? But I don't like to fight. It's not built on me, you know, to fight. So I went home, and down the road, you know, some days late, I found someone say, you did the right thing. You were not supposed to fight. That's not the right thing. I think you intervened or intervened when it was appropriated to avoid conflict, but you didn't continue the conflict. But I felt so bad that day to say, I think I'm not, you know, the strong guy that everybody expecting to go and fight back. But I felt bad. But I shouldn't be feeling bad about it, because that's the right thing to do. But I even didn't know. But it's this concept. I don't know how that happened. Maybe, I don't know. But this concept that should be changed little by little in the society. We don't need to harm others. We need to stop the violence. Good. So now we're going to go through like 3 examples. 2 I took from this book, Chico Xavier. That's a very interesting one. And 1 I found on the internet. I'm not going to, I have the video and we're going to watch together. It's a very interesting one. So in the Chico, I'm going to talk a little bit and then I'm going to read, because I don't want to miss some points here. That's very cool. I mean, that's cool in terms to explain, what we're studying here. So Chico on the 1940s, he was very well known on Pedro Leopoldo, where he used to live. So a lot of people was looking for him to ask for help. And Chico was at work, and a woman, and a desperate, went look for Chico at his house. So she got there, she couldn't find him, and somebody told her, no, Chico is working. So she went at Chico's work. When she got there, she met Chico's boss, and he also was pissed off. Well, everybody's looking for Chico here. So he said, oh, Chico's not here, Chico is at home. And then it's okay. So the woman turned around, went at Chico's house, and when she got there, she said, no, Chico's not here, Chico is working. So she got pissed, and then she went back to Chico's job. She got there, she met the same guy. So no, Chico just left. He went to do a service, in another place. And then she turned around, she got so pissed. Okay. She screamed a little bit there, so she left. At that night, she went to Chico's Spirit Center. And then now I'm going to read. And then she got in, she smashed his face and said, do you think that I have time to walk back and forth looking for you? Go straight to that room. You are going to give me a pass right now, dog.
Dog?
When I read that, I said, oh my gosh. To Chico. Chico was paralyzed. He would not be able to help anyone. He needed to be calm to transmit a good vibes. Emmanuel appeared with one more advice. Talk to her and show understanding. Imagine Chico there, no? Still with his face burning, he took a deep breath and started to apologize. Mom, please forgive me to being so busy. I could not talk to you while I was in my work, on my job, because my boss doesn't allow it. You understand. I'm there to serve the company that pays me. I can't lose my job because I have siblings that need my paycheck, that depend on me. The woman started crying. Chico came back to normal and obeyed the orders. When she turned her back to him, he asked to his invisible companion where he was. He agreed that he had the reason to be aggravated. And then Emmanuel said, you have the reason, but she has the need. The need. So that's sometimes if he just pay back or doing harm, so I'm not going to give you a pass. So we're not doing what we're supposed to do. No, calm down. Another point is when you have that feeling inside of us, we cannot help anyone.
And the pass would not be good.
Oh, not going to be good. And another piece, all that, the person that's most going to have benefits of it, it's us. It's not even for the other person. All these that we're talking about, all this effort, it's not for the other person. It's for us. Because when I said before, the goal is to take this feeling out of your heart. That's the goal. Because if we have this feeling in our heart, that's beyond us. Or it could be all the way around. That's why we needed to put as a goal to do good and pray for them. That's another part here. It's kind of funny because in the following day he went back to the office and the boss looked at him and said, what happened with your face? And then he said, oh, I smashed on the door. And then he said, on the both sides? So that's kind of this funny piece. So the second one started also with Chico. Is he loved dogs, and he had a dog that it's not a easy dog to treat. He had some pain, the dog had some disability, but he loved so much that dog. So he used to come, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then he used to take care of the dog, clean the dog. He barely had money also to buy, he mentioned here about cobertor, blankets for the dog. But he did everything he could do to help the dog. He was to feeding the dog, through the mouth, because the dog couldn't swallow by itself. But and then one day he got home, and the dog was dying. It seems to be that the dog was just waiting for him, to pass it away, and that's what happened. So on his hand, he passed away, and then Chico went outside, buried the dog, and he cries a lot because he liked so much that dog. And then maybe some months passed away. His sister, he was sitting down with Chico and said, "Hey, do you know that? Do you remember the dog that he used to have, the one that's limping?" "Yeah, of course I remember that dog." And said, "He didn't die on a natural death." "No?" I said, "No. Our neighbor," oh, you know the story? That's good. "Our neighbor gave the dog poison because she thought that without the dog, you would have more time. You would, we could help more people." And Chico, oh my gosh. And now I'm going to read. So he was not angry with that person. At his heart, there was no place for that feeling. But sadness took care of his soul, and a shadow started developing around his heart. After a few days, the Spirit Emmanuel told him, "The pain you are holding in your heart is disturbing the good spirit work. You need to get rid of these feelings." And then Chico, "I can't forget, but it's necessary. How can I do it?" "We need to give her something that will make her very happy." "Me giving her happiness? But I was the injured one." Emmanuel said, "That's the recipe, it's not mine. It's from our Lord Jesus Christ. Do good to those that bother you. Read the gospel. Obedient and uncomplaining, she tried to find out what that person wish she has that would make her happy. A sewing machine. So she could then bought the sewing machine, paying installment for a long period of time. And I think she was still paying this installment because for the salary and the price of the sewing machine, I think he's still paying that. So when Chico went to visit her, look at this piece, very important. When Chico went to visit her, the person was so happy, that when she saw Chico coming, she ran into him and gave him a huge filled hug with so much love that the light irradiated from her involved Chico from head to toe. When she released him from the hug, the shadow in his heart was dissipated. So this one recipe for the ones that carry anger in their heart. So look at this. He went through all that, but he also, in order to take this, the sadness, just the sadness, was not anger, just the sadness, out of his heart because it was disturbing him to work, doing good. That's why this sadness, we need to get rid of. It's not for the other person, it's for us. He had to buy something that would really fulfill the other person. The other person would come and hold the vibes that with that, you know, dynamic of that movement that took, you know, this shadows out of his heart. It's very hard to do. I know. I'm listening. I'm reading as I know. And it's funny to think that it's, when you started to study those things, and seems to be for somehow, things start also to happen with you. Just say, okay, let me test you a little bit. You did your study. You see, you're so good. And then start to, you know, some small things start to take into your life. And then say, okay, how are you going to react on this situation? What should we do? And then you really kind of, okay, I really wanted to jump on him, but I cannot do that. I need to do it in a different way. And that's why it requires thoughts. We need to be alert. We need to know what we're doing. If you not know, we do just about the opposite way. I have a small video also that we're going to put here so we can see it together.
We end tonight with one of the most potent powers on earth. It can change lives in an instant. Everyone has it. It's the power to forgive. Watch it now in action in Steve Hartman's Assignment America.
In a small apartment building in North Minneapolis, a 59-year-old teacher's aide sings praise to God for no seemingly apparent reason. Indeed, if anyone was to have issues with the Lord, it would be Mary Johnson.
For all you've done for me. You never had a chance.
In February 1993, Mary's son, Loramian Bird, was shot to death during an argument at a party. He was 20 and Mary's only child.
My son was gone.
The killer was a 16-year-old kid named O'Shea Israel.
I wanted justice. He was an animal. He deserved to be caged.
And he was. Tried as an adult and sentenced to 25 and a half years, O'Shea served 17 before being recently released. He now lives back in the old neighborhood, close to Mary. This close.
He lives next door.
Next door.
How a convicted murderer ended up living a door jam away from his victim's mother is a story not of horrible misfortune, as you might expect, but of remarkable wisdom.
A few years ago, Mary asked if she could meet O'Shea here at Minnesota's Stillwater State Prison. As a devout Christian, she felt compelled to see if there was some way, if somehow she could forgive her son's killer.
What'd she say to you? I believe the first thing she said was, look, you don't know me, I don't know you, let's just start with right now. And I was befuddled myself.
O'Shea says they met regularly after that. When he got out, she introduced him to her landlord, who, with Mary's blessing, invited O'Shea to move into the building. Today, they don't just live close, they are close. Clearly,
Look at this.
Mary was able to forgive.
Unforgiveness is like cancer. It will eat you from the inside out. It's not about that other person. Me forgiving him does not diminish what he's done. Yes, he murdered my son, but the forgiveness is for me. It's for me.
For O'Shea, it hasn't been that easy.
I haven't totally forgiven myself yet. I'm learning how to forgive myself. And I'm still going towards, trying to forgive myself and what it is I've done.
To that end, O'Shea is now busy proving himself to himself. He works at a recycling plant by day and goes to college by night. He says he's determined to pay back Mary's clemency by contributing to society. In fact, he's already working on it, singing the praises of God and forgiveness at prisons, churches, to large audiences everywhere.
Forgiveness is a powerful thing.
Which explains why Mary can sing her praise of thanks to her audience of one. Steve Hartman, CBS News, Minneapolis.
All you've done for me.
It's not a beautiful story? No, and I think that's one of the most difficult things. Forgive someone, now they kill your son or your daughter. So it's possible. But another interesting thing is that she did that for her. Unforgiveness is just like a cancer. Eats you from inside out. And also that does not forgiven the person, does not diminish what the person has done. Does not. It just free your heart. I got amazed. When I look at this, oh my gosh. It requires so much courage to go. He didn't know the person. He started to meet the person. No, I'm going to go there. Say, you don't know me, I don't know you, but we're going to start to develop this relationship. As I said before, start to develop the trust. How you build the trust? Getting together to talk to the person. So building the trust builds the tenderness that gives us, I'd say, the courage to invite him, to help him now, to find a house for him, to connect him back to the society. And she felt so good. He felt so good. Saying, no, I want to pay you back now. Maybe not. I cannot bring him back alive. But I'm going to be working with you to do something good for the society. On that incarnation, it requires, I admire her a lot, what she has done. And him too. To kind of, yes, I made a mistake.
It's like Mary Jane, she said, it set us free.
Set us free. Set us free. It's not for the other person, for ourselves. Because we hold that, as much as we hold, it seems to be that our heart, it's losing the skin, gets so sensitive, everything kind of it shakes us up. When you forgive, you feel like, I have oxygen inside of me now. I can be happy now. I'm free. So, last little comment that I missed, but I want to put that out. It doesn't mean that we needed to let the evil do whatever they want to do. I mean, the pressure against the evil has to happen. Otherwise, in a short period of time, the evil will take place. What really Jesus wants to tell us, no revenge. No revenge. Don't feed that piece back. But the pressure has to happen. You know? Just like if you take all the cups out of the streets, you would turn this whole place upside down. And sometimes the best thing can happen to the person is to go to jail. Because if he's unbalanced and trying to kill people in the society, as much he does that, worse get for himself. So sometimes the best thing to do is stay sometimes in the jail. So he can reflect and he can come back, more harmonized with the society. But we cannot have this revenge inside of us. So I'd like to thank all of you for this opportunity. All that is for me. I just want to share with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
What should we do with somebody who does things that harm us? The two things that we need to do.
Do good and pray.
Very good. That's it. I feel good now.